Κυρίες και κύριοι, χαίρετε. Εδώ και 40 χρόνια οι Κύπροι, Ελληνοκύπροι και Τουρκοκύπροι αντιμετωπίζουν ένα κοινό πρόβλημα. Σήμερα έχουμε την ευκαιρία να συζητήσουμε με δύο πολιτικούς επιστήμονες, έναν Ελληνοκύπριο και μία Τουρκοκύπρια, το πρόβλημα που βασανίζει εδώ και 4 δεκαετίες τον Κυπριακό λαό. Έχουμε λοιπόν την ευκαιρία να εξετάσουμε τον τρόπο προσέγγισης του προβλήματος από τη σκοπιά δύο επιστημόνων που προέρχονται από τις δύο κοινότητες. Μαζί μας η Δόκτωρ Ουμούτ Μποσγκούρτ, καθηγήτρια πολιτικών επιστημών και διεθνών σχέσεων, και ο Μιχάλης Κοντός, πολιτικός επιστήμονας και διεθνολόγος, διευθυντής του Κέντρου Επιστημονικού Διαλόγου και Έρευνας. Hello.
Hi.
So, thank you for accepting my invitation. And let's start by how close are we to the solution of the Cyprus problem 40 years after the invasion? Ladies first.
Yes, of course.
First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me. I think it's a great opportunity, and we need to kind of create these opportunities to discuss with one another. 40 years on, are we closer to a solution? I think yes and no. There are certain circumstances that might allude to a certain kind of solution, but I think we need to look at the external dynamics as well as the internal dynamics. I mean, I guess the main thing I should start with, because it's quite recent, is the recent election of Davutoğlu as the Prime Minister of Turkey. As we all know, he was the foreign minister. So this is like one of the factors. The fact that there has been a change in Turkish, Prime Ministry with someone who has a lot of interest in resolving the Cyprus problem. Is this going to create a momentum? And even though there are certain objective conditions which might lead to a solution, in comparison to 2004, for example, I have a sense that on the part of the Greek Cypriots, there might be more willingness to resolve the Cyprus problem. In the north, though, we can see Eroğlu is, to be fair, not very willing to kind of embrace a federal solution, and this is, I think, has become rather clear by now. So in terms of internal dynamics, I can't see something that is very pushing towards a solution. We need, of course, both the internal dynamics and the external dynamics to bring some kind of a solution. But in terms of the external dynamics, we can look at Turkey. I guess Greece is pretty much out of the picture right now because of what has been going on there with the crisis, etc. So probably Turkey and the US, what they're aiming to do in the region tells us, or at least gives us hints about whether this thing could be resolved or not. Now, some people have invested a lot of hopes, let's say, with Davutoğlu's election as the premiership. I mean, one thing that Turkey is definitely trying to do for some time is becoming a regional hegemon in the region. And for that, they are, for example, trying to resolve the Kurdish problem. They also had some aims of resolving their problems with the Middle Eastern, neighbors, as well as Cyprus problem. Davutoğlu himself, he also mentioned this in his declaration right after he was, he became prime minister, that he has a willingness to also kind of work on the Cyprus problem.
So far in the history of the Cyprus problem, the terms of the Cyprus problem at each time, the terms of the discussion over the Cyprus problem at each time in the history of the problem have been defined by the distribution of power that derives from abroad, not in Cyprus, but outside Cyprus. I would say that Turkey has been, in a way, preeminent in setting the terms for the solution of the Cyprus problem, especially since 1974, but it has never worked alone on this. It has been supported by great powers such as the United States, mainly due to Turkey's geostrategic value during the Cold War, as well as during the first post-Cold War decade. What is actually changing now, in my point of view, is that there is no global hegemon in the form of the United States. But I would say that for the first time, some foreign factors, powerful factors, are realizing that Turkey may have not been so sincere all these years in the Cyprus problem.
How can we create a smooth symbiosis in the case of a solution?
I think there are two communities, right? Speaking different languages, having different religions. I don't think we can really deny that. But there's also a Cypriot identity. So I don't think you can define yourself as a Turkish as well as a Cypriot. So these two things, they go together. Well, how does this work? Of course, and one of the things that I believe nationalism is something constructed. You know, if you look at the history of the concept on the island, you'll see that only after 1950s did it really manage to flourish. I mean, since the 1920s, even some historians take it as far as 19th century. You know, we could see the rise of nationalisms, Turkish and Greek nationalism, but only after 1950s. It was something constructed. So this means we can construct a new reality, which means, Cypriot identity, but two communities which speak two different languages, but they also have another kind of identity, which is Cypriotism. So it has to do with
of course,
education.
there is a teaching of Turkish and Greek language in schools for
Yes,
both communities.
Definitely. I mean, this is something that needs to be done. Like Turkish Cypriots have to teach Greek to students, language, and education has to change completely because, nationalist, narratives have been taught. I mean, there have been some changes in history books in the north, in particular, but there's a lot of things that needs to be done on that point: education and teaching the language of the other community.
I would say that the creation of a civil identity is achievable. When I say a civil identity, I mean an identity that is attached on the state. However, at the same time, I believe that the X factor of the harmonious coexistence of the two communities is mutual respect of their difference. It's not bad to accept that there are two ethnic groups, two ethnic communities in Cyprus that are to a degree different. They are to a degree similar or the same, but they have differences. Respecting differences is what, in my point of view, the European Union has achieved during its course. Making people to be willing to live together with other people without feeling any necessity for national clearance. We need to respect difference.
You believe that a solution based on bizonal, bicommunal federation is feasible?
Yes. I think it's the only thing that is going to work in the current circumstances because it's something like a middle point, between, you have two official rhetorics between the Turkish Cypriots and the Greek Cypriots, and federal solution has been, accepted for years, also thanks to the efforts of the international community. And I think this seems like a good way of bringing two communities together because there will be certain tensions. So federal state means you'll live together but apart at the same time. So,
but Dervişoğlu says that means two countries in one country.
Well, Dervişoğlu does not believe in a federal solution. Essentially, he believes in two separate states. So, regardless of the rhetoric, I think. He's not really sincere when he says he believes in federalism.
How are the two communities win this goal for a
federal state
if the Turkish Cypriot leader does not accept it?
If there is enough pressure from the civil society, I think things could have changed. So if there's a strong willingness, let's say, coming from the society, social movements, popular movements, I think it's perfectly possible. But I have to also add that Turkish Cypriots are feeling very kind of disappointed after the Annan plan failure. It's as if we have done all we could do, but the Greek Cypriots did not accept the Annan plan. So there is a lack of trust, I think, on the part of both communities.
And the trust is a key.
Trust is a key. Trust is a key, and And I think it's kind of normal, you know, like these two communities, they've been through the war, like lots of people have been killed, there are missing, many families in Cyprus, they have someone missing in the family. So trust is a significant issue. So you can't expect these two communities suddenly after 30 years, act as if nothing has happened.
Exactly.
If you try hard and if you find points of agreement, you can reach a solution, even if initially it seems unfeasible. I believe that asking whether a federal solution is feasible for Cyprus lacks a very important part of the reality. The solution of the Cyprus problem is going to be defined, in my point of view, not by the label of the solution, but by the content. For example, during the Christofias-Talat negotiations from 2008 to 2010, there has been discussed providence about rotating presidency. If we consider that this providence is one of the characteristics of the future government system in the context of the solution of the Cyprus problem, then we understand that you can have a rotating presidency in a bicommunal, bizonal state, and you can have a rotating presidency in a unified state without any federal structures. You see, it's not an element of a federal state. Show me the content and I will tell you whether I agree or whether I disagree. The content of the solution of the Cyprus problem must be discussed in an open dialogue with the society, with the Turkish Cypriots and the Greek Cypriots.
Is there a rise of nationalism, fanatism is in both communities? Do you believe that education is responsible? If yes?
To an extent, maybe, but in the Turkish Cypriot community, partially yes. Partially, yes, but I think this has changed in 2004. You know, like what we have seen in during the Annan Plan period was that the young generation, especially, are pretty much fed up with this nationalist rhetoric. I was born into it, and I was raised, and now they see that there is not much meaning because it doesn't explain life anymore because. They can't find jobs. There are all sorts of problems with the system. Economic crisis. So, in my sense, in the Turkish Cypriot community, yes, there are certain groups that are feeling closer to these kind of nationalist ideals. But I'm not sure if it can be generalized in the Turkish Cypriot community. In the Greek Cypriot community, we have Elam and some right-wing parties which are flirting with Elam. Economic crises are always all over the world. There are good breeding grounds for the rise of nationalism.
I believe that a form of nationalism will always exist. It's a political ideology at the end of the day. And political ideologies rarely cease to exist. I believe that the conditions of the decades of 1960 and 1940 to a large degree have ceased to exist. Though we have still some nationalist ideologies flourishing in the Greek Cypriot and the Turkish Cypriot communities. However, the conditions are very different. There is no any sharp ethnic hatred, and definitely there is no any tendency to violence, which is very important and helps us to reach the solution of the Cyprus problem easier.
Dr. Umut Bozgurt, thank you very much for accepting my invitation. Κύριε Κοντέ, ευχαριστώ πολύ που αποδεχτήκατε την πρόσκληση. Ελπίζουμε να δώσαμε τροφή για περισσότερη σκέψη σε όλους. Ευχαριστούμε που παρακολουθήσατε. Καλή συνέχεια.